So, Project Hail Mary is finally here, and the big question is pretty simple. Is this just another big budget sci-fi movie with Ryan Gosling floating around looking confused, or is this actually one of the best movies of the year?
It might not be perfect or without any flaws, but it clears the bar pretty hard. Project Hail Mary is the kind of sci-fi movie that reminds you how fun, emotional, and cinematic this genre can be when the people making it actually care.
And keeping this completely spoiler-free, the basic setup is already strong. Based on the book by Andy Weir, who also wrote The Martian, this is another fantastic adaptation. Ryan Gosling plays Ryland Grace, a man who wakes up alone on a spaceship with no memory of who he is, why he's here, and what mission he's on. As the movie unfolds, he slowly pieces together what's going on, and it turns out the situation is much, much bigger than just one guy lost in space.
Danger, Will Robinson! Danger! No, Will Robinson! Danger!
That premise alone is enough to get you hooked. But what makes the movie work isn't that it doesn't stay just a survival mystery. It becomes something warmer and smarter than that. Yeah, it's a science fiction movie, but it's also a movie about problem solving, pressure, and connection. The last part is what really gives it life. Also, if you like these types of videos, don't forget to like and subscribe.
I think this is the first thing people need to know going in. Don't expect some cold, distant, super serious hard science lecture. This movie is much more accessible than that. It's got tension, it's got mystery, but it also has a humor and a surprising amount of heart.
Yeah, this is not one of those sci-fi movies where the filmmakers are so obsessed with sounding smart that they forget to make the audience feel anything. Project Hail Mary understands that the science is only half the appeal. The other half is whether you care about the people dealing with it.
And thankfully, the movie absolutely gets that part right.
Ryan Gosling is really good in this, and not in a loud awards bait kind of way. He just fits the role. He plays Grace as intelligent, awkward, stressed, funny, and human all at once. He seems like a guy who is in way over his head, but still trying to keep himself together with whatever humor he has left.
Exactly. He's not playing this as some ultra cool sci-fi Superman. He's playing it like a very capable person who is still very much capable of panicking. And that balance matters, because the whole movie depends on him holding your attention for long stretches.
And he does, completely. If Gosling didn't work, this movie would fall apart fast. But he gives the right mix of charm and emotional credibility. So even when the story gets weird or ambitious, you stay locked in because he keeps it grounded.
Now, staying spoiler-free, the other big strength here is the central relationship between Ryan Gosling's Ryland and the super cute alien Rocky. Not to be confused with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
And that is where the film becomes something special. Because what starts as an interesting premise slowly turns into a story that's genuinely funny, weirdly sweet, and a lot more emotional than people may expect thanks to the acting of Ryan Gosling, as well as the cute animatronic movements and emotions of Rocky.
That dynamic is the movie's secret weapon. It's where a lot of the comedy comes from. It's where the emotional investment comes from. And it's really the thing that stops this from being just another man alone in space solves problem movie.
That's probably the smartest choice the film makes. It gives you something personal to latch onto. It understands that audiences don't just fall in love with concepts, they fall in love with chemistry, personality, and connection.
Visually, this movie also stands out way more than I expected.
Same, because a lot of modern sci-fi has this issue where it technically looks expensive, but emotionally it looks dead. Everything's glowing, everything's digital, everything's clean, and somehow none of it feels real.
Exactly. It's like you are watching a giant effects reel instead of a movie. But Project Hail Mary doesn't have that problem nearly as much. The sets feel tangible, the lighting has shape, the shadows actually matter, and the whole thing has a more dramatic, classic cinematic texture.
That part really came through in the final production. There's a clear emphasis on how the movie avoids that flat LED wall look a lot of modern productions have. This one apparently feels more physical, more layered, more like an actual film instead of content shot in a glowing warehouse.
And that matters because atmosphere does a lot of work in a movie like this. Isolation has to feel isolating. Discovery has to feel exciting. Tension has to feel physical. If the world looks fake, the whole thing loses power. This movie seems to understand that.
Now, this is where we get into the criticism, because this movie is not without its flaws.
And the main issue here is actually a pretty interesting one. It's not that the movie is boring. It's not that it looks bad. It's not that the performances are weak. The problem is that in some parts, it seems too eager to move on. And that matters because with a story like this, the payoff is not just the answer. The payoff is how someone figures the answer out. If you rush that, you lose some of the satisfaction.
Exactly, and that's the key criticism. And it's a good one. But it's also important not to overdo it, because if you haven't read the book, you may not feel the loss nearly as strongly. So I wouldn't hold this over the movie. So I would frame it like this. The movie works really well on its own, but you can feel that some of its deeper problem solving got trimmed in the adaptation.
Also, at nearly 2 hours and 40 minutes runtime, this is not a quick watch. And what's interesting is that the complaint isn't just it's long. It's that the flow feels uneven. Some sections move too fast, while others stay around a little longer than they need to.
And that creates this weird effect where the movie can feel slightly too long, while also making you think a longer version might have actually been better if the time had been spent on the right material.
Which sounds contradictory, but honestly, I get it. A movie doesn't feel long just because of a runtime. A movie feels long when its rhythm is off.
Exactly. So that's probably the cleanest warning for the people going in. Don't expect perfect pacing. Expect a very strong sci-fi movie that occasionally shows the seams of being adapted from a book with a lot of internal logic and detail.
But with all that said, I still come away really high on this movie.
Same, because at the end of the day, Project Hail Mary seems to get the important things right. It's funny, it's exciting, it actually has emotional weight, and it remembers that big science fiction ideas only really land when the human side works too.
So, spoiler-free final verdict. If you like hopeful sci-fi, problem-solving stories, strong character dynamics, or movies like The Martian, this sounds absolutely worth watching.
And if you haven't read the book, there's a very good chance you'll just have a great time with it. If you have read the book, you might notice some missing depth in places, but it still sounds like there's a lot to enjoy.
For me, that's the clearest takeaway. Project Hail Mary may not be flawless, but it sounds like one of the strongest and most satisfying sci-fi films of the year.
And honestly, in modern sci-fi, that already makes it worth paying attention to.